You're in the right place at the right time, stretching from the distant spaceports of Batu, Tatooine, and the Wheel, all the way to the bright center of the galaxy at Imperial Center, slamming into your hollow projector like a supercharged nanoparticle of coaxium. This is the Star Wars Unfiltered podcast. I'm John, he's Jason, and we're here to bring you your needed dose of Star Wars film, TV, book, comic, gaming, and collecting news. The date is August 9th, 2021, and we got some fun updates as usual this week. We got news about Disney's Galactic Star Cruiser slash immersive experience. We got news about a Lego Star Wars Halloween inspired special coming out later this year. We got book news in the form of a little golden book release of a classic Star Wars story that we all know and love. And we're also going to be doing our Bad Batch review of the latest episode. In addition, we'll be talking about Star Wars collecting through the years, decade by decade, and random collecting experiences. Jason, how has your weekend been? Or the last few days, I should say.
Good. Speaking of Legos, we got the Lego Harry Potter collection for Switch. I've been playing that with me and my wife. Been playing that with our daughter, and it's really fun. It actually, I had never played a Lego game before. You know, they just shit those things out.
No
for
kidding.
All sorts of different properties. But I'm like really excited for the Star Wars Skywalker Saga Lego game that's coming out.
Right.
Presumably later this year, maybe.
Right. It's been kind of like bandied about, and there's been clamoring from the fans. And it's funny because I've only sampled the Lego Star Wars games. I think I played one of the Star Wars trilogy, I think it was, or the saga, or not saga. It was one that had the prequel stuff. And I played that, I sampled it. I had really fun. They're simple and they're easy, but the humor is really what sells it. And I think that shines through in the TV specials that are Lego also. Just something about, because they can just be as silly as they want. And when I first saw some of the Star Wars games back already, 15, 16 years ago now for the first one.
Yeah.
I remember thinking at the time, like, what is this silly Star Wars stuff? Obviously, I'm not the target market now, but as time went on, I've grown to love that stuff, and whatever. There's a whole dedicated fan base for that, and it is fun. They're fun games. They're simple, but there's just like some platforming and doing some quick little mission things. But
a lot of stuff to collect, and you can put as much time into it or as little time into it as you want. As far as like you can just burn through the quote unquote story.
Yeah.
Or you can go and try to, get all the hidden things and, all that crap.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So anyway, that's what I've been doing, playing Lego Harry Potter.
You got to catch up on that Clone Wars. You took a break for a while, didn't you?
Well, yes, because I'm perpetually halfway through the series. I was supposed to finish it before the final Bad Batch, and I guess I have a week left.
You got a week to burn through like 3 seasons.
Yeah.
You'll be like me back in April, when like cramming the entire series in a month. But
well, in all fair to the various franchises, I have also hit a brick wall with reading the Harry Potter books. So
there you go.
I'm like partway through Prisoner of Azkaban, and that came to a halt too. So there's a lot of gears I have to get moving again across Harry Potter and Star Wars. So
right. No, I'm the same way, and I've taken largely a break from Star Wars, other than our podcast and some gaming here and there with you. But like as far as my free time, it's not been focused on Star Wars lately, other than a couple like organizational type things where I've been putting books away and things like that. But I've been just taking a break from other things, focusing on other stuff that then had been like in stagnant motion for sometimes years, like picking up my Robotech reading had really been stagnant for about 6 years. So it was like, it's just insane that sometimes these things get on the sideline, and I'm the kind of person that once that snowball is rolling, then it's hard to stop. And that's good in a way, because I can really like burn through that thing, whatever it is, and finish it. And with reading, it's difficult in the age of the internet, because I have like basically ADHD, and it's just there's so many distractions and life stuff, and that's the way it is. But
So that's what you've been
uh,
doing is Robotech.
Robotech lately, reading those comics again, and then even revisiting the original series of it, which is on. I think right now it's on IMDb TV,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of like Hulu in that there's commercials, and I think you can pay for a version without commercials, but
Right.
it is free with commercials, and it's good quality, and that's a lot of fun. So, and of course, to tie back into Star Wars, uh, Brian Daley, the author of the Star Wars radio dramas and Han Solo Adventures novel in the late 70s, he and James Luceno, later Star Wars writer for New Jedi Order and many other,
Mm-hmm.
they both wrote under the pen name of Jack McKinney in the 80s and early 90s. And they wrote altogether, I think, 20 Robotech novels.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like 20 or 25. There was a lot because they did basically novel versions of the three original animated series under the Robotech umbrella, the Macross Saga, Robotech Masters, and the New Generation. Each of those, Macross Saga got 6 books. The other two, I think, got 3 books each. And then on top of that, there was supposed to be a animated series of Robotech 2, The Sentinels, which never came out other than a comic book form. And they went ahead and novelized based on these scripts that existed. And then they even went back, kind of like what happened with Star Wars, where they did little filled in the gaps and did side stories that
Mm-hmm.
were, between the other things. So Robotech has an interesting parallel history with Star Wars. Dave Filoni has mentioned in interviews that it was very influential for him watching it as a kid in the 80s. And then it's come up a few other times. And it's funny because Robotech itself is inspired by Star Wars. So it's this whole circular influence thing that just keeps coming back.
Yeah.
But Robotech's a lot of fun, and it's something I want to keep hammering away at because I've only seen the whole 85 episode original series one time on DVD through Netflix in the mail years ago.
Yeah.
And I think other than that, it was only seeing it as a kid airing on KCOP 13 out of Los Angeles. But yeah, so good times, Robotech. And speaking of good times, Disney's Galactic Star Cruiser resort slash immersive experience is coming next year to Walt Disney World. And of course, this is the big Star Wars immersive thing where you're supposed to be on literally a luxury cruise liner traveling the galaxy. They released a 30-second promotional commercial. What do you think of it? Because there's a lot to unpack here with this, but what do you think of the whole shebang?
I think it's a really neat idea. But my initial reaction, especially seeing the price, is that if I'm going to spend $6,000, potentially six
Wait, is it
thousand.
5 or 6?
Well, it depends on your package. So, 2 guests per cabin. I think the voyage total for I don't know. There's like a per guest per night or
Mm-hmm.
voyage total.
Mm-hmm.
They don't necessarily line up with the math, so I don't know what the difference really is. But anyway,
Yeah.
voyage total for 2 guests per cabin is about 5,000. If you've got
It's
4
insane.
guests, so if you got, well, I guess it says 3 adults, 1 child. I don't know what family that is, but
Yeah.
that's 6,000. So it's thousands of dollars, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
I'm going to spend that much money, I don't want to be in the resistance fighting the First
No.
Order. I want to be in the
No.
rebellion fighting the Empire, and because the kid that's into the prequel or the sequel trilogy, he's not paying the bill
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is I'm paying the bill. It's my Star Wars, okay?
Right. Right.
And it's not. I mean, the ship that you're on, the Halcyon, looks pretty cool,
Yeah.
but I wish it was a Moncall cruiser
Yeah, I know.
because
It's
that would be
because
that
they
would
used to be
yeah
luxury
that would be like
liners.
a really cool callback to the origins of the Moncall cruisers in that they were
Yep.
passenger
Yep.
liners and stuff.
Yeah, there were like in the old West End Games books. There was one called the Kuwari Princess, which traveled the galaxy, and yeah, it just I don't know, man. $5,000-$6,000. That's insane. I mean, like, okay, first of all, I'm never gonna have that much in my life, probably ever, unless I win the lottery, like at once.
Right.
Um, if even if I somehow got into my possession $10,000, which would be more than enough to pay for this, would I want to invest half of that in a 2-night experience with somebody? I think I would probably I'd rather spend it on other things
Yeah.
that are not as transitory.
Yeah.
That's the real thing, transitory. And I'm sure it's incredible. There's no doubt that Disney's going to put a lot into this and make it totally immersive and whatever. But dude, $5,000, man. That I'm sorry, but this is an immersive experience that I'm going to be watching on YouTube with no regrets,
Yeah.
more or less.
And it's not taking if I'm paying that much money, it better be taking me to Tatooine. Not Black Spire Outpost, right? Like,
yeah, I was a little disappointed when I saw it was Resistance themed, but then again, it's like, well,
it's the thing. It's fine. I get it. I get it. But
yeah,
like I said, I'm paying the bill as
Yeah.
as the parent or whatever.
right.
I want it to be my Star Wars, not my
Yes.
kids' Star Wars, because
Yeah, no, fuck their Star Wars.
yeah, well, yeah. I mean, to an extent.
I get where you're coming from, because we want to see classic Star Wars, the Empire versus the Rebellion, and First Order versus Resistance feels it's too soon. It's too soon.
It's too
We're
soon.
not ready. We're not ready to unpack the trauma of the last.
It's too
5
small. That's a whole. That's we could go into that whole thing, but it's just just not. Yeah. The thing is, it's like if I'm gonna spend, okay, for me it would be like the 3 guests per cabin thing. So it wouldn't be 6,000. It would only be $5,300 for the voyage total. That's 2 adults, 1 child.
Mm-hmm.
Even for $5,300, I want to go to Tatooine on a Mon-Cal cruiser, Rebellion and Empire.
Yeah,
that's what I want.
Yeah, and have tons of free Corellian whiskey shipped directly to the room.
And I want Sebulba's Twi'leks too.
Yeah.
I want.
Dude, there'd have to be voluptuous, half-naked Twi'lek women spend that much money.
Yes.
I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. So I don't know, Disney.
In the trailer, they did show a,
an old Twi'lek dude.
Yeah, not what I was really hoping for, but still kind of cool.
Maybe that's a hint. Maybe he's the pimp for the Twi'lek women that later come to your cabin.
It's possible. Something. It's possible. Not.
He's the slave trader.
Not really probable though. I'm guessing that Disney's not going to go that way. But
unless you slip some credits to the right people, how immersive are they going to make them?
What? You can make it as immersive as you want. I think you can.
I know, right?
I mean, they're one of those packages that said 3 adults, so you and your wife could just bring a Twi'lek.
Oh yeah.
So
good times. Yeah. So we'll stay updated on this, of course, as time goes on. That's going to be coming out next year, probably next summer is when
start saving up.
Yeah,
start donating that blood and that plasma.
No kidding. But we got a fun Lego Star Wars special coming this fall, October 1st. The dark side strikes back in a terrifying way. October, Lego Star Wars Terrifying Tales, an original special, starts streaming on October 1st on Disney Plus. I'm excited for this. The thing with Lego, like we mentioned, talking about the games, they can afford to be off the cuff and silly. And so it affords a lot of comedy that's really good on some of these Lego series, like the Holiday Special and like the Freemaker Adventures. And plus, I love Halloween. We talked about on one of our early episodes the Vader's Castle comics. So I'm excited for this. What do you think?
I am too, and especially reading a little deeper, it's going to be in the same vein as the Vader Castle comics,
right?
With Tony Hale from Arrested Development and other stuff. Buster Bluth on Arrested Development. He's going to play Vani. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Vader's boy. on
Right,
Mustafar.
right. The guy from Rogue One, and he's
Yeah,
like,
his
"My
his,
lord."
yeah, that's his big part.
Yeah,
Um, he plays Vinny, who is also in the comics, or at least the last one. Was he in the first one in the
I
Vader's
think
castle?
I can't remember if he was in the first one. It's already been a couple years since I read it, but
Yeah,
he's at least in a set of those comics.
yeah, doing the kind of the Crypt Keeper
Mm-hmm.
slash what was that other one? The
Running some of the like experimental machinery of Vader's, like, tubes and
Yeah,
all
well,
that
it was
kind of
just
stuff.
it was in the it was very reminiscent of I said Crypt Keeper, but
Almost
there
like
was
Igor.
there was a comic series, a horror comic series, and then there was those Stephen King, George Romero movies that were based on them. Not Tales from the Dark Side, right?
Tales from the Crypt.
No, I want Tales from the Crypt. I don't remember
Hmm.
what it was. What the
I
heck?
think I know what you're talking about. 90s, right? Early
Yeah,
90s,
no, the '80s. There was like
80s.
two movies, and each one had like three.
Oh, it was just Tales from, no, it wasn't. I want to say Tales from the Crypt again. It was oh, it's on the edge of my brain. Creep Show. Creep Show.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, there was
It's
Creep Show 1 and Creep Show 2.
right,
I
and
never
those.
saw the sequel,
Yeah.
but
Anyway, it's like that where there's like you know a creepy dude
yeah,
introducing these stories, and
right.
so it sounds like that's what this is going to be like
Mhm.
with Vinny. And then I hope that's how you pronounce his name, Vinay. There's an
Mhm.
apostrophe after that last e.
Right, could be
Um,
Vinay even.
oh, it probably is Vinay. That's probably what it is. There you go.
Right.
Christian Slater is going to be in it too.
Oh, that's so awesome. I've been meaning to watch stuff that I haven't got around to yet, like the Bot, which was a original series. I think set in
Which one?
Mr. Robot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so that was an interesting one. I need to get around to, but uh, Christian Slater is awesome. Now
Hmm.
he's going to be involved with Star Wars. He was already part of the Star Trek universe with his
I
little
know.
brief
Yeah, his little
appearance.
cameo.
So, no, this is cool. Yeah, there's a bunch of interesting people here on the cast list, and you know, I don't know. This thing just seems fun, and I hope it means that we're gonna get a new Lego special every year. Maybe maybe we'll get a Thanksgiving one next year. It'll be like Garfield.
That'd be cool. Well, I mean, they could just keep pumping out the Halloween ones because
Yeah.
horror is so easy to do.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I'm good with that too. Um. Yeah, and there was a cool little image. It says "Rest in Pieces," and it's got like what seems to be Vader's hand coming up with a lightsaber. Um, unless that's Darth Maul. I don't know who it could be, but
That
yeah.
reminds me that'd be a great like segment or something for a Star Wars
Hmm.
horror thing. There's a lot of movies that deal with someone losing their hand and the hand having a
Yep.
life of its own, a la the
Yep.
Thing, or
Right.
um, Evil Dead does it, and then there's some
Hmm.
movies like Idle Hands, and there's some older movies too. Um, but
Manos Hands of Fate.
they they could do that with Star Wars because people are losing hands left and
Yeah.
right.
There was a Star Wars Tales comic back in the early 2000s called, I think it was called like The Tale of Luke's Hand or something like that. And it was this like creepy kind of like terrorizing people and coming after whoever. And I think it almost seems like at the end of the story, it was like leading it to Jason and Jaina in
Yeah,
bed or something like that. I can't remember the exact details, but yeah, Star Wars and horror is always an interesting combination. So
yeah.
looking forward to this October 1st. We'll give our full review later in the year.
Yeah, I can't wait to. I'm glad it's coming out on October 1st, so I can watch it every day leading to
Exactly.
Halloween.
Exactly.
Okay, let's talk about the little golden book version of the Faithful Wookiee that's coming out.
That's right. From the holiday special, they took that animated segment and they've now stretched it into a little golden book coming out.
Is it a
I can't
stretch? Is it a stretch, or is it a compression? I don't know. Or it just fits perfectly
I
into
think
one of
it's going
those
to fit
things?
perfectly when I think about it, but it's so funny that this segment from the much maligned holiday special, which everyone loved this segment though. It was the one shining moment in it because it was the introduction of Boba Fett. It's funny that this is now getting a little golden book treatment for kids.
Well, you know why, right?
The Mandalorian.
The Book of Fett.
Oh, the Book of Boba Fett. I never thought of that.
Literally,
actually.
we're gonna literally get a little golden book of Boba Fett.
You are not wrong. That's amazing. I didn't quite think of that. And this comes out January 4th of next year, which will probably just be a couple weeks after the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
So,
So we'll probably
Kinda
be
makes you-
we'll probably be knee deep in Fett episodes.
yeah.
When it drops.
Yeah. This is interesting. So, I'm looking forward to this. I don't know if this is actually going to be targeted at kids or just people our age that want some obscure Star Wars knowledge to be brought forth again. You know, like who is this really for? Is it for the dudes in their 40s and 50s, or is it for the kids?
I think it's a little bit of both, probably.
Yeah,
Obviously, there'll be people that pick it up just to get it, but there'll also be,
right.
people that want to get it to read to their kids and stuff. So
That's true. That's true. And the segment by itself is, of course, now part of Disney Plus on their. I think they call it the Retro Collection or something like that. But where you can watch droids, Ewoks, and all the other stuff.
yeah,
So
if you want to spoil the story, you can go on Disney Plus now and watch it. But otherwise, wait for the print. There might be extra material.
you never know. You never know. Yeah. So that's coming, and Jason, let's talk about the Bad Batch.
Yes.
This latest episode, number 15, Return to Camino, which they kind of touted as the first part of a two-part finale. I don't know if this next one is Return to Camino Part 2. I don't know, but this one is called Return to Camino.
Well, it's probably gonna be Escape from Camino.
Yeah, yeah, that would go in line with the serial nature of these titles. What do you think of this one?
I liked it. Once again, they pulled music from the movies.
Yes.
So there was
I caught that when they were landing. When
Yeah.
the Empire was landing on Camino.
from Attack of the Clones.
Wonderful mystery theme that plays as Obi-Wan lands, and I've always loved that theme every time I watch Attack of the Clones.
Uh-huh.
And yes, that was glorious to hear that.
No huge revelations, but just stuff kind of like maybe revealed, I guess. Not
We're
really
coming to
revealed.
a head, like
Yeah,
for Camino
I guess
itself.
that's kind of what it is.
Yeah, I feel like we've had the fate now of so many prequel characters and locations that we never, even in Legends, never quite got tied up by the transition from the prequels to the Dark Times. And so, like, obviously Orn Frita, maybe he's injured, whatever, but he was shot in the head on Ryloth. And then the Camino, all this stuff happening with Lama Su and the Kaminoans trying to secretly kind of evacuate their people, knowing that the Empire is going to bring the hammer down. And it's strange to finally get this this kind of thing resolved after almost 20 years in Star Wars.
Oh, has it really been that long?
Nearly.
Yeah, that's true.
Camino was revealed in 2002.
Yeah,
obviously.
no, I know. We're almost there.
We're almost there.
I feel like we dodged another bullet because, every time there's something with cloning that could potentially tie into the sequels,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like you get on the edge of your seat and then you can relax when it doesn't happen. Like I almost not really, but almost half expected them to drop a line like, we're shipping all the tech and the Kaminoans to Exegol. Or,
I know,
to the
I
secret
know,
base
right?
in the unknown regions, and you're like,
Yeah.
shit, But but they didn't do that. They did point out that Omega was there when Clone Force 99 was made.
Yes, which is really interesting. That really then ties in her even more with them.
Yeah.
Like, you know, so it really makes you wonder what was going on with what was the Kaminoan that died protecting her? The one that kind of created her. It wasn't one from the movies. It had a different name, but
Yeah, I don't know.
that one.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder what was going on. She had
That
these
one.
like side
Um,
experiments.
yeah, well, it also points out the whole, you know, the accelerated aging, which isn't like a mystery. It's not like something they have to point out. It's just something that
Yeah,
kind of gets pushed to the back of your mind. You don't really think about it. And you're like, oh yeah, she is not aging, and she wasn't accelerated aged like they were,
right,
and then they're
right.
actually like
They're like
not
10.
they're like almost she's older than them. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
that's kind of the funny part is that
It
she is
is
actually
funny,
older than them.
right? And then like as we see Rex later in Rebels season 2, he's because age is finally caught up with him, so it's like he's only about 30 or whatever, but he looks like he's 60 because the effects of the accelerated aging and everything.
I never thought of that. But then
Yeah,
isn't it supposed to be him at the Battle of Endor?
yes,
That's like
yes, and
Filoni's little
that's
thing.
canon now because as you remember seeing on that thing I posted on Facebook, that was in like a children's book and it's Rex at the end.
That's
And
right. Yeah.
I think there's been
So
another
then,
guidebook that insinuated it. So it's not like crystal clear,
right, but
like
like,
movie canon
are
yet,
they gonna
but
have to retcon now, like Filoni's head canon that's become real canon, like his aging, right? Like it catches up to
right.
him, but then what? It like stops or
He,
slows
he-
down.
or he just dies. Like at the end of the Battle of Endor, he just
Was
keels
it?
over.
He's like he's like 200 or something.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
how he feels. He's like but well, I mean, there was speculation about Palpatine's age for a long time because of how he
Yeah,
looked.
yeah. There was, and I remember, the big thing before we saw Revenge of the Sith, even like when we were coming up with our prequel theories, we were like, well, why does Palpatine look the way he looks in Return of
Right.
the Jedi? Is the dark side eating away at him, or is he actually older than we think? And little did I know, it was just from Sith lightning being turned away from a purple lightsaber.
But I think it's not just that it was Sith lightning. I think it was that it was his Sith lightning, right?
Right, right.
Because Luke doesn't like get up and look look
Oh,
like
that's true.
Palpatine.
That's true. Or maybe even Mace was doing something through the
Oh,
lightsaber. So,
yeah,
this
maybe
will be like the return of Mace theory is
it
coming
was
back
it
again.
was the stance. It was his
His
Vapad
yeah, that
stance.
that's what it was. Anyway, to get back on the tangent
Um,
of Bad Batch.
the other thing I noticed besides the age is that when because I watched it twice, um,
Okay.
and uh, it seemed like there were, I guess there's two things with Crosshair. One, he planned for a contingency to kill his troops
Yeah, you're right.
because he set up those little mirrors or whatever
That's
to
right.
hit everybody.
Yes.
Which I would think, I'd almost say like, that's just a theory, but Tech points it out, so or notices it. I think.
Right, which is the key for repeat viewings that you're supposed to notice those little details. So,
Yeah.
no, I
Um,
think you're right. I think you're right. The whole crosshair thing is interesting because I thought, is this going to be a long arc with him where he's going to turn good again at the end of the series, or is he going to die, or what are they going to do with Crosshair?
yeah, still don't know.
We still don't know because he got
Because
stunned by Hunter.
he got stunned. It almost seems like there's some conflict, but he ends up seeming pretty resolute about supporting the Empire. And he points
Yes.
out that he doesn't have his chip, his inhibitor chip.
Yes.
Um, and also, one thing I noticed, it's almost ambiguous in what he was ordering his troops to do with Omega, because he just says like put her on a shuttle and get her off world. He doesn't say like, take her to
The
Admiral
Empire.
Rampart.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
doesn't say take her to Rampart or like,
Yeah, maybe he was saying like ship her to this rebel planet or something.
or just like off planet in
Off
general.
planet. Right, right.
Like just I don't know. It's just weird
Very
to me.
true.
It's just weird to me. It could be nothing, but
Yeah.
it to me it came off as ambiguous, like
Yeah.
purposefully
Yeah.
ambiguous.
It'll be
So,
interesting to rewatch that. I'll revisit it at some point, and I'll try to, like I said earlier, I'll probably rewatch season one before season two next year. So maybe I'll notice some more of these threads. Also, seeing them together closely, kind of like what I mentioned with Clone Wars, you pick up those threads easier if
oh
you're
yeah,
watching sequential episodes back to back in a binge.
especially when they're chronological. If you're able to watch
Yes.
them chronological, I can't even imagine what it'd be like trying to remember stuff watching them in release order back
I
in the
well
day.
when I revisited Clone Wars this last April and my first time, I did watch them in release order. They're still mostly released chronologically.
Mm-hmm.
There's only a handful each season that will sometimes be out of sequence. There and it's usually done in a way to where maybe only a fan would notice.
I don't know
Um,
though. Some of those ones that like lead in the second and third season that lead back to season one, they're like
oh yeah,
really
there's
tight.
oh yeah, there's the ones that have the that lead back into the Clone Wars movie
Uh huh.
with the well there's like stuff with Grievous, but when he has that big ship that has the ion
Yeah.
kind of weapon. Yeah, that leads right into the Clone Wars movie,
Oh,
and then
speaking of
yeah,
that, um, it was weird that the Imperial bombardment was blue in the
I
Bad
noticed
Batch.
that too because okay, blue you would associate with ion cannons unless they were
Yeah.
like purposely, but then it's blowing up. It's not electrifying
Well, I looked it
the.
up because I was like, that's kind of weird. And there's articles about the color of lasers in Star Wars, and
Of course, there is. We're
yeah,
those kind of people.
yeah. And obviously, blue does show up in like hand weapons and
Hmm.
stuff.
It's usually green or red for most blaster
Usually,
things.
blue does show up. I know in the sequels, like when Poe takes a shot at Kylo, he stops the bolt. That's blue.
That's
Um,
right. That's right.
but that's not a capital ship bombarding a
Yeah,
planet.
I would think most capital ships blue would just automatically be an ion cannon. But yeah,
Yes.
I noticed that and I was like, okay, but then the platforms are blowing up, so it's not an ion cannon.
Yeah, it
So
just struck me as weird because yeah, to me that's ion. It's always been ion, at least as far
yeah,
as ship to ship combat is concerned.
right,
Even
right.
even historically with hand weapons, because this when you stun someone, it's a blue like
Circular
ring.
beam.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't know. That just struck me as weird.
Yeah. By the way, I love that Clone Wars, Rebels, and now Bad Batch have really brought back the use of stun on a blaster like as a common thing. We've
Yeah.
been, it's like for years, like the only one we saw was in A New Hope when Leia gets stunned, and then even like the later games and stuff, it was never an option. You just had like Dark Forces, you just had a blaster and that was it. You couldn't set it on stun, in the game. But then like I think it was Clone Wars was really the thing that started bringing that back, and then they made sure it was rings and it had that sound, that
Mm.
particular, kind of thing. So I just love it. It's such a retro fan kind of little detail that like no one else is going to give a shit about, but it's like I just love it. I've always loved that sound and just how it looks. So
You know,
good time.
um, actually, I'm looking at some pictures of Venator
Hmm.
uh, ships firing, and I guess they do use blue sometimes.
Okay.
So maybe it's just a continuation
Yeah.
from the Clone Wars.
From other episodes. And it might just be certain turrets. There might be like turrets that are facing down on that part of the ship that are the blue ones. And then like maybe the upper, might be the red or green or whatever.
Yeah, it looks like mainly in the Clone Wars. I don't remember if there's blue shots in in Revenge of
Like
the
Revenge of the
Sith,
Sith.
but that's it doesn't matter.
A story for another day.
Yeah, okay. Still waiting. Oh wait, no, they did tell that story, and it wasn't. It It
Yeah.
didn't matter. No one cared.
So, oh yeah, the other interesting thing I wanted to mention. So it was cool seeing more of Camino with the tube system that went underwater that Omega knew about,
Oh yeah, yeah.
leading to that secret lab. I like that little hovering droid with the long name, which always gets shortened. I can't remember his name, but I love that he's now seemingly part of their crew. Like maybe next season or next episode, whatever, we'll see more of him being, part of the crew, the Bad Batch. And because I've always liked that character ever since seeing him in the Clone Wars on 2 or 3 Camino episodes. So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. And obviously, the stakes were raised when the Empire started attacking and the platforms were exploding and sinking. And they couldn't race out to their ship because the explosions were too deadly. I honestly don't know how they're going to get out of this. As far as Star Wars stakes, it's pretty serious when your platform is now burning and crumbling and going into the depths of the ocean.
I suspect they're going to get into a little submarine and there's going to be some Gungans
Oh
living
boy.
down in there.
Oh no.
Actually, it'd be interesting
Oh
if there was.
no.
uh, who doesn't think Jar Jar is funny? It would be interesting if there was like I wouldn't say, I don't know, like primitive Kaminoans or like proto Kaminoans down there, or
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
some other offshoot that's like more traditional. You know,
Yeah.
they've
Yeah.
rejected their the the
The
technological
technology. Yeah, you
advancements.
never know because I mean, in Attack of the Clones, we see that one riding the Iowa or whatever you call it, the creature that can go
Mm-hmm.
underwater and
Mm-hmm.
fly. So maybe there is this other tribe of Kaminoans or something. Although it's hard to say. I mean, like this seems to be their adopted world or something. We don't know a lot about them or where they originally come from
That's
or if
true.
Camino is their homeworld at all. But yeah.
Yeah, we'll get some cameo. It'll be Saul Guerrera or maybe Leia show up or something. Probably not Leia. Probably not anything.
Leia,
They'll
yeah,
probably
Leia will
find
be
another ship or
one.
something. But
Leia will be 1 years old about now, give or take. I don't. That's a good question. Speaking of timeline stuff,
oh yeah,
no,
I forgot about where we are in the
where we
timeline.
are. Well, that's the thing. What I was going to say is we don't know how far we've progressed. Obviously, it's shortly after the formation of the Empire and Revenge of the Sith. But as the season went on, how far did it go?
It couldn't have been that far because Omega would age.
Very true.
She's young enough to where aging for her it would be
Right.
noticeable.
Right.
Even
But
without
so
accelerated aging and stuff. So
my guess is that it was just a few months,
yeah, that's my
maybe
guess.
six months at most.
Yeah.
But I'd love to get a official breakdown at some point, and I'm sure they probably will think about that because as the series goes on, they're going to have to probably pick up on more galactic events and
Mm-hmm.
like like things like the formation of the early rebellion and stuff like that are very timeline
I
specific.
feel like
So
we're getting that all the time now. It's
it's your
like stealing.
favorite. It's your favorite Star Wars era, Jason. It's the
Uh,
pre A New Hope
yeah,
glut.
no. What everybody wants to see is Vader hunting
Mm-hmm.
down the last of the Jedi.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what we want, and
And that's been in the Vader comics,
yeah, I
actually.
know it's in comics, but comics ain't a
It don't
cartoon.
matter.
It doesn't matter.
But there has actually I just recently read those like this year. Their Vader hunted down this one particular Jedi that was an original character, and then he eventually went for Jocasta Nu, the
Right.
Jedi archivist
Yes.
librarian, and that was an interesting
That's
comic.
that stuck up bitch.
That stuck up bitch, which I was happy to see taken out. I never liked her because she represented the um the hubris of the Jedi during that
Yes.
time period.
Yeah.
You know, so
I'm sure she was a very nice lady otherwise.
yeah, yeah, maybe.
Anyway,
Uh,
I know that wouldn't make for a very compelling, like it wouldn't make for a very compelling series. It fits
if it was
more
just
in
that
with,
by itself.
yeah, and then you'd have to, to make it interesting, you'd have to inject all this like intrigue between Vader and Palpatine and probably all this
Which
other
the comics
stuff, and
do.
which they do because they have to, because otherwise it's not exciting. Um,
Exactly.
but yeah, I mean that's what people want to see. Instead, we're getting the rebellion. This is how they started
With
again.
Andor. Andor is going to probably delve into a
Oh
lot of
God,
that.
Andor, Rebels, Bad Batch, Rogue One. I mean, Rogue One didn't show how they started, but like, you know,
Certainly pre A New Hope. You couldn't get more pre A New Hope than that.
yeah, it's like the Death
Um,
Star plans. They're showing it from every angle possible.
right. But on the flip side of that, that is probably, as I mentioned before to you, I think that is my favorite Star Wars era, just purely for the events going on and the kind of vehicles they're allowed to use during that time in
Oh
the
yeah,
timeline.
yeah, for sure.
So you got your X-wings and TIE fighters and things
I
like that.
Since the destruction of the old EU, um, it's definitely become my probably my preferred time period, just
Hmm.
because of the um, the type of attention that's given to it,
Yeah.
and probably the fact that they can't fuck it up too much, right? Like it's
Right.
got to
They
lead
have to
in.
stick. Yeah, they have to stick with what people love visually and story wise.
Yeah,
So
we're not going to bat too. You know,
no,
we're
no,
if they're going
no.
somewhere, we're not going to Jakku. We're going to Tatooine. We're going to
That's right.
tried and
Although,
true locations.
although the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge comic series did have a prequel with Han and Chewie going to Batu, um, just so you know. But I have not read that yet. I flipped through it at my local library. Um,
Well, hell,
but yeah,
I've
I
been to
get what you
Bat
mean.
too, so you know.
Yeah, you've been there. I get the point you're making though. We want to see classic trilogy planets and locations a lot. Not too much. I mean, we can only see Tatooine so many times, but like I'd
I'm
like to see more like that.
I'm really enjoying watching the formation and solidification of the empire, and how
Yes.
it
Yes.
came, solidified its power over all the systems in the wake of the Civil War. So,
Absolutely.
or,
Project
or
War
the
Mantle
the
with
Clone
the
Wars, I should say.
stormtroopers. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The disillusion of the clones phasing out into the recruits of Project War Mantle
Isn't
and the early
isn't that
stormtroopers.
weird that the Clone Wars isn't called the Civil War? The Galactic Civil War is
Yeah,
the
I
rebellion.
know.
It's weird.
Yeah, maybe it's because the Confederacy actually did succeed and not it wasn't just fought within the Republic's own territories by solely.
Uh
It was
huh.
actually across the other territories as well. So maybe that's the. But I know people have brought that up on Reddit forums and stuff. That
It doesn't matter. It's
why is it called that?
we all know
Yeah,
why. It's because the Clone Wars is the Clone Wars.
exactly.
That's just what they called it.
Right. Um, I don't think I have too much more to add about that episode. It was solid. It was great. I'm looking forward to the finale of the finale in the next 4 or 5 days here.
Yes, I can't wait. Now let's talk about Star Wars collecting through the years.
Yes, indeed. So I thought it'd be fun because it's right in the opening lines of our podcast. We've not really done a dedicated collecting episode yet, and it's something we've kind of talked about every so often, but it's always on the back burner because there's dedicated collecting blogs and websites and channels on YouTube, and it's such its own thing. And we still mostly focus on the movies, books, comics, games, and the lore. So, but it's still a part of our lives though, because you and I have collected off and on over the years. Um, so yeah, I thought it'd be fun to kind of go back to the beginning and let's remember some of these waves and phases of Star Wars collecting because so much has changed over the last 4 decades.
Well,
You
what's
know,
the first thing you remember having as a
gosh,
collectible? I mean, it's probably a toy. It's probably an old
there's
Kenner
two
figure, but
instances. There's two things I remember from a very young age, whether I was like 1, 2, or 3, somewhere in there. I don't know. I remember having the Star Wars pop-up book.
mhm.
Um, And I remember like sitting on my uncle's lap while he read it to me and we used the little pop-ups and everything. And what's funny is there was, you know, like I think I mentioned this in the Super Star Wars recording that we did the other day, which people will see on YouTube here. But there's a cutscene of Obi-Wan and Vader having their duel on the Death Star, and the angle and the pose that they're in was just like the pop-up on that in that book. And
Mm-hmm.
so there was just certain things in that were my early Star Wars memories. There was a pop-up of the sand crawler when you open the page, and a full-size sand crawler like opened up, and then there was like R2 getting sucked into the sand crawler and just things like that. I really remember that pop-up book. And then I remember one Christmas, it was probably Christmas 83, because that would have been when Return of the Jedi was out earlier that year. So there was probably a big, wave of the figures. But I remember helping my mom pick out figures that we were going to gift to my cousins. So it was like one of them got Chewie, somebody got Darth Vader, and someone got Obi-Wan, and each one went to a cousin. And I
That
don't
was in
remember.
'83 because you would be 3 years old, right?
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, I don't
Or
remember if I actually.
presumably 3.5
Yeah,
thereabouts.
I don't remember who. I mean, I was probably just there and I saw her pick them, but there was something like maybe she handed me the wrapped figures and I handed them to my cousins. I just remember being at my uncle's house,
Uh huh.
and and Brad and Tim, my cousins, opening those and being like, "Oh, I got Chewie. Oh, I got
Yeah.
Ben." And so that was my earliest memory of the Kenner figures was, and I'm just guessing it was 83. It could have even been 84, 85
Yeah.
during the Power of the Force phase where you get a coin in the package also, because Kenner was trying to increase sales because it was people who were burned out on Star Wars by then.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
So
memories are they behave weird when you go
yeah, it's really
further
weird in
back.
those early years. So what's some of your early toy and collectible memories?
I remember having someone in an X-wing suit. So I don't know if it was Luke or if it was Wedge.
It was
But
Luke. I'll tell you, because Wedge did not get a figure until the 90s.
okay, then it was definitely Luke then.
But he
I
had
remember
like
having
black hair on the X-wing figure. Like he had his helmet, but it was like dark hair. Like it wasn't blonde Luke hair like the Luke figure.
yeah.
So I could see why you might be confused because Wedge has darker hair, but
I don't remember the
yeah.
hair. I just remember having like the X-wing pilot figure. And
Yeah.
I don't remember the time frame. I mean, it was probably mid late 80s.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
and I remember and I probably had more toys than just these two, but I also remember
Yeah.
having the Rancor.
Nice.
And
Yeah, my friend had that.
that I have a distinct memory of going to a friend's house that lived on the street behind us.
Hmm.
And I remember because I was really big into Godzilla. Um,
Hmm.
so I had, the old like '85 Imperial Godzilla figure that is, if you saw it, you'd recognize it. It was they had
I
one in the
kind of
back of.
remember. Yeah.
It's the one that was everywhere in the mid '80s because of Godzilla 1985, and it
Yeah.
was.
I wanted it.
There's the knockoff versions of it that looked all weird, and then there was a little 6-inch version, and then there was like a foot tall version,
Yeah.
and I had both. I still have my 6-inch version actually, but you could remove the arms and stuff on them. And I had the
Oh, interesting.
Rancor. The Rancor obviously Star Wars is cool, but like I'd have them like fight Godzilla and stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember this house behind our house, on the street behind our house. I go there with my Rancor and my Godzilla figures to go play with my friend, and he had toys. He actually was a kid that I think him or his older brother had the GI Joe aircraft carrier in the backyard.
Oh, wow. The
I was never in.
USS Flag.
Yeah, I was never into GI Joe much, but anyway, I was over there, and I remember pointing out that you could take the arms off of Godzilla. You can't take the arms off of the Rancor. I
The
don't know why
Ranker.
I did that. I don't
Yeah.
know why I said that. Stupid. And his older brother ripped the arms off the Rancor. Probably just be a
Oh,
dick. 100% to be a dick.
yeah. Well, this also ties into memories I have of terrible things I did to Star Wars toys. Because me and my cousins up in Washington, I remember visiting them. It was probably 1985 because it was before they moved to Silver Lake the next year. So it had to have been before 86. But we were playing in a field next to the house, and we had a Millennium Falcon and we had a B-Wing, actually, which I think I don't think you could buy it under the Return of the Jedi banner. I think the B-Wing vehicle was sold under the Droids cartoon banner because there's briefly an appearance of a B-Wing on the show. And I just remember us throwing those vehicles up into the air into this kind of wheat field. So they were kind of padded when they hit the ground, but not really. It's just stalks of whatever. And then we were throwing like peaches onto them, splattering them all over the vehicles. And it's just like awful. These are like classic Star Wars vehicles and toys, and we're just like, but that's being a kid, I guess.
Yeah, kids are rough with their toys. And
yeah.
Then you didn't really collect, right? Like
No.
there's
No.
you'd play.
Yeah, you play with them, you get them dirty, and
it wasn't until I'd say I guess the resurgence of Star Wars that there was any sort of real collecting going on.
yeah,
At least as far as I'm concerned. I know that obviously
yeah.
there's people that collected the figures, in the 80s and stuff, and
Oh,
whatever
there
collectors all the
was,
time. But as far as for
but they
myself,
were older. They were older.
yeah. And I was never really a toy collector, still not, and wasn't really in the 90s. I kind of got some of the newer Kenner figures when or it was Kenner or the other company.
No, it was Kenner at first, but then it became Kenner Hasbro.
Okay. Well,
And now it's just Hasbro,
the
I
figures
think.
that came out when the special editions were coming
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
I have a bunch of those. But I always found it really difficult to collect stuff because if I collect something, I like to be a completionist. And if I
Yeah, that
can't,
was my problem in the late 90s.
and if I
That's why I had to stop.
Yeah, I mean, if I can't get all of them, or if I know that I can't, if I know I can't, or I know that it's just it doesn't make sense to get all of them. Like, not that I can't, but
Yeah,
just like, do I really want to spend all this money on
yeah,
getting everything? Then I just avoid doing it. So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I do have a bunch of figures from that series, and then some Phantom Menace figures too, I think.
Yeah, like from Denver and things like that when Celebration was going on.
I'd say the only things that I really liked collecting is, and still do, are the audio dramas. I collected a bunch of those. I never completed all of them.
Compact disc or cassette?
Yeah, that's part of the problem because it's like,
I
it's.
still have A New Hope and Return of the Jedi radio dramas on cassette,
I
and
do have.
I intended to sell them at yard sales, and they never sold.
Oh,
So
I
I still
wonder
have
why.
them, and I'm glad I
Yeah,
do,
I wonder why they
actually,
never
because
sold.
yeah. But now
I
I'm glad I didn't.
I have the cassettes of A New Hope. It's interesting that that's something that I think about as far as collecting is collecting something that damages, not necessarily damages itself, but it wears out, right? Like a compact disc doesn't necessarily wear out with use, right? So you have it,
Hmm.
it sounds as good the day 10 years later, 20 years later, 30 years later, it sounds as good as the day you bought it. Whereas a cassette, whether it be a VHS or a beta tape or um, a little audio cassette, it's going to wear out. Magnetic
Yeah, they
media.
warp.
Yeah, so I always kind of didn't care to collect anything that would be on cassette. Like if I had the opportunity and it was cheap, like the A New Hope audio drama, I was like, yeah, I'll get the cassettes of that and I'll just throw it in a box and whatever. But
Yeah.
or like the movie sets and stuff.
Hmm.
But I never really cared about collecting them that much because they would wear
Yeah.
out. So
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
I tried to kind of collect everything I could on compact disc. That was kind of something that I was kind of working toward. I don't think I ever completed it. I have like Crimson Empire and the radio
Yeah.
dramas. I think I have the Dark Empire stuff. So it'd be okay. So my major collections were those, but that's not much of a collection.
And then
The
paperback novels and
the
hardback
novels,
and
yeah, the novels. I tried to collect all the hardbacks I could too. I got most
yeah,
of
you
them.
were really big on hardbacks when I had given up on them already, and I would just always wait for the paperback. You were
Yeah.
like like all the New Jedi Order, and even I think Shatterpoint. I think you read in hardcover.
Yep.
The
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which,
So
New Jedi, thank the maker that they didn't release every single book on hardback. Because they just
that
had the
would have
big
been rough.
the yearly release on hardback, and then there was like
19 years later.
two or three books in between that were just
Yeah,
paperback exclusives. And then also fast food happy, kid meal toys.
like Taco Bell
Taco
and
Bell,
Pizza
I still
Hut
got all my
stuff.
Taco Bell toys. When the Phantom Menace came out, um, Tricon Foods, which
Mm-hmm.
was Taco Bell, KFC, and Pizza Hut, they
Yep.
had those toys in each store. They were all released together, and each store had a set of toys that you could collect from each store. And I remember
Yep.
driving around all over Orange County, going to different Tricon's, food stores,
Yeah. They got
and
our money those few years.
yeah, buying each, collecting the set. I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know that I collected all of them. If I didn't, I'm
There was a
really
lot.
close. If I
There was a
didn't, I'm
lot.
really close.
Okay, so here's the thing about those. So I mostly, for whatever reason, collected the Taco Bell stuff, probably because I had a location near to, well, I worked at Taco Bell in the late 90s, and then
And hey,
um
Taco Bell's delicious.
especially when you're 18 years old or whatever, it's like the fuel for life. But
Uh-huh.
so I focused on the Taco Bell toys because it was kind of doable. I think there was just like 7 or 8, and then like, and of course you had to keep going back because you get doubles and triples, and then like I need the best bin, Cloud City little magnet thing that floats, like you're looking for
Uh-huh.
that one thing. And so I completed, I think, the Taco Bell toys in 97 and 99. But then I only went to Pizza Hut maybe once or twice because I didn't have a lot of Pizza Huts around me where I lived at the time. And then KFC, I might have only gone to once, and I
Yeah.
kept one or two things. So I missed out on a couple of the restaurants during the Tricon era, but Taco Bell was easy to do. And here's the funny thing: so when I started working at Taco Bell in October '99, there was still, obviously they weren't selling the Star Wars toys as part of the kids meal anymore, but when I started in the store, I remember the manager took me to the back. She's showing me around, and she took me to the storage area in the back for the different sauces and other foods and
Mm-hmm.
everything. And on top of the shelves were these massive Star Wars displays that were up there. And I said, "Is there any way you could sell me those, or we could work out something?" And she's like, "Oh, you can just have them." And I was like, "Oh, dude, that is awesome." So I ended up hauling these things. I had to take them in a car. Obviously, I wasn't gonna like, carry them home or anything because I lived down the hill where the Taco Bell was. But I came by like the next day or something, shoved them into the back seat of my mom's car, and they took up the whole back seat. They were fairly large displays,
Yeah.
and because it was the ones you'd see in the lobby where it's like a bubble window where you could see the
Right.
whole lineup of all the toys.
Yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah.
think one might have been a big Jar Jar or something. I'm having trouble remembering because what happened is I took these. They unfortunately, I displayed them for a little bit in my room in Morro Bay, like around the time you visited. You probably saw them, and then unfortunately, after I moved from Morro Bay, they were so big and so unwieldy. They sat in storage for like 10 years, and I never had a place to properly display them. And then when I moved that stuff into the storage at the house I lived at, again, there wasn't really room, so I had to put stuff outside under a tarp. And over a few years, with rain and other things, and wind and leaves, stuff, so much of that got damaged, and
Yeah.
it became such a fucking albatross to like figure out where I was gonna put it. I ended up I think just chucking those displays because also like I was looking at online stuff. It's like there's no value for this. Even 10 or 15 years later, no one wants fucking Taco Bell Star Wars displays. And then here's what's funny though. When I was going through me and my dad were moving storage stuff just over a month ago, as I mentioned a couple podcasts back.
Right.
Um, there was this big box, and I opened it up, or my dad did. He's like, "Oh, dude, check it out. You got some Star Wars stuff in here." And I opened it up, and it was like 30 of the Taco Bell toys in their boxes because they came in these little cardboard boxes.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And I think it was the excess toys that Taco Bell had given me It
Now
was just like
was this the Phantom Menace things?
this
The
was
Phantom Menace
Phantom
ones?
Menace.
Okay, yeah.
This was all those. So I had like because I had tons of the Phantom Menace Taco Bell toys because of what Taco Bell gave me,
Right.
and so it was tons of these boxes, and I remember holding on to these. I don't know when they went into my dad's storage. It was probably like 10 years ago or maybe even more because I hadn't seen them. I honestly had not seen this box in I want to say 15 years or so,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a little damaged from like dust and like warping and like I think there was some discoloration because I think they did sit outside for a little while,
Yeah.
but they were in the boxes. So I have a glut of Taco Bell Phantom Menace toys that when that market finally like spikes sometime in the
Oh
next
yeah. You got it.
47 years, I'll be that guy that's gonna like be like, here we
You're
go.
sitting
I'm
on a
cashing
gold
in
mine.
after all these years.
Well,
So yeah.
so through because I have eBay searches saved that I get emailed to me every day or every night. About 1 a.m. I think is when their emails go out. But I got these searches set up so that I can try and snag
Newt Gunray t-shirt.
a which.
Newt Gunray t-shirt,
Oh,
right?
dude,
That's what you're looking
I
for.
got no, but I got to add that to my search term. No, it's a Celebration One T-shirt because I lost mine, right?
All
So,
right.
the search term is like 1999 Star Wars, Celebration or whatever.
Yeah.
But for some
Yeah.
reason, a lot of Phantom Menace, toys show up. Phantom Menace fast food toys, and
Mm-hmm.
so when I see that market spike, because I see it. And when that market spikes, I'll let you know. Not yet.
That'd be
Not
good
yet.
because I'm hoping it parallels with the video game market because GameCube stuff is starting to rise up as GameCube and PS2 uh
Right.
generation finds themselves now in their 30s. So they're like, oh, getting all nostalgic. So I'm hoping
Next
that
year,
yeah,
you're gonna be living high on the hog with your Taco Bell toy
I hope
mini.
so.
But
I
yeah,
hope
I'll
so.
let you know. I'm waiting too because I have boxes full of all those toys from KFC and stuff, and
Yeah, yeah.
it's really
It-
depressing to see them. And they haven't even increased; they've stayed the same, which means that they've actually gone down due to inflation. So
yeah,
the $2.99 that you spent in '99 is not the $2.99 you spend now. So
yeah, I know. And that was the problem with the different eras of Star Wars collecting because with the prequels, it was a supply and demand thing where they're like, we need to get the supply out there because we think there's going to be this massive demand. And there was to a degree because of the excitement building up for episode
yeah,
one.
yeah.
But quickly, right after that movie, I want to say not immediately, but a month or two later and into the rest of 99, it was bargain bin status for tons of that stuff.
Hmm.
I
Well,
mean,
that's a
that
lot.
was
That's a lot of stuff. I mean, a lot of collectibles, a lot of stuff that's created to be collectible.
yeah.
It doesn't increase
It's
in
like all
value.
the limited edition games that come with statuettes and things like that. Those statuettes they're almost worthless a year later.
Well,
Because
I mean, it's a matter of like there's things to collect because you want to have it on a shelf, right? Or you want to play with the toy or whatever, right? Um, and then there's stuff that's made to hopefully increase in value.
yeah,
And I feel like those almost always just fall flat. Kind of like the those statuettes in the limited the collector's edition
yeah,
for games are kind of a good example of that. Although I think
hmm
that those are for fans that just want to open it up, put the statue on their own desk or whatever,
yeah.
or
I
shelf. But
know. Yeah.
a really good example is those plates. Those were big in like the 80s
Oh
and into the
yeah.
90s. The commemorative plates for
There
stuff.
was
And
Star Wars commemorative
I have
plates.
one. My uncle bought a Millennium Falcon flying through the asteroid field, and it's on
I
my
know the one
bookshelf.
you mean. I exactly as soon as you said it, it has the TIE fighter lasers coming at it, and
Yeah, he gave it to me because he collected it, and then was like, I don't need this piece of shit anymore. And he gave it to me, and I was like, this is great. And I put it on my
that
shelf.
was that was on the back of like every Star Wars Insider magazine,
Mm-hmm.
like through from 94 to like 96. It was
He's
just
got a Star Trek plate too, but he kept that
yeah,
because he likes Star Trek. But
yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's Yeah, that's part of the weird thing of collecting. It's you know, okay, so the other thing at the time in that whole, you know, fever feverish collecting frenzy when the Phantom Menace was coming out was the
Hmm.
Pepsi cans.
Oh, the Pepsi cans.
which
Almost
which
forgot.
yeah, how could you forget?
I was
I
such a part of that spring into summer. Like
uh-huh.
that, that whole summer was a fever dream of Phantom Menace and Pepsi cans just floating across my vision.
Yeah,
Really.
I have very little recollection of like actually collecting them, but boy, I have a crystal clear recollection of the day I threw them out. because because it was you know, all the stuff I when I moved from Orange to Rancho Santa Margarita, there was this my stuff lived in at my uncle's house in Santa Ana before I moved to Rancho.
Mhm.
While I was in Africa for that summer back in it was 2004, summer 2004.
Right.
So
Right.
I move out of Orange. I go to Africa. Before I do that, I move all my stuff into my uncle's house in Santa Ana. And then when I got back from Africa, I um, I moved all my stuff from my uncle's in Santa Ana to my uncle's in Rancho.
Right.
And then it was 2005 that I went back to my uncle's in Santa Ana, and because I had left stuff there like an asshole, like people do, you know, they move out of
Yeah.
somewhere, especially
Yeah.
if they're not, they don't, they're if they're if nothing is changing at where you're moving from, especially if it's family, then invariably you become an asshole and just leave stuff there because you're like, I'll just
Yeah.
get it later and stuff, and you just leave
Sure.
it in the
Sure.
closet and stuff. So I went over there to do stuff. I felt really bad about throwing out all my Stephen King book club books.
Right. I think you mentioned that on a
Yeah,
gameplay
it was
video or in the.
it was the same day. I kind of feel bad about that because they were books. It felt kind of
Yeah.
sacrilegious, but at the same time, you literally cannot give those away. Like if you go to a
Yeah.
used bookstore, they will not take book club books.
They're in thrift stores too.
Yeah,
They're everywhere.
yeah, you cannot like Bookman or yeah, Bookman. Um,
Bookman's
in well, Bookman because there's Bookman's, right? Isn't that a place that we went
in
to
Arizona.
in
Yeah.
Arizona? Yeah, but there's the
Oh,
Bookman in
is Santa Ana, right, or Orange?
Orange, right? Orange. Yeah. The Bookman, huge used bookstore. They say on their website, um, we will not take book club books. And I think they even say they won't take Stephen King books in general because there's just
Yeah.
so many, you know. So I threw out those and I threw out my Pepsi cans. And you know what? Uh, 15 years later, no regrets. Because I know I can go on eBay and buy the whole set for like $5
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
those cans because I see those pop up every now and then too.
Oh, now
But
you're
I
tempting
remember
me to go
taking
on
it.
eBay.
I gotta get those cans. I gotta get those
See,
cans.
life is circular. It just all comes full circle.
Uh huh.
I'm repurchasing all the things that I sold.
Well, you know,
No,
you're
yeah,
kind of just you're not paying for the thing. You're just paying for them to hold it for you, right? Because
yeah,
they were the
yeah,
sucker that collected the
yeah.
cans and held on to them for 20 years, right?
Exactly,
But yeah,
exactly.
I just taught. I had them in the box. I had like two of the the 12-pack boxes.
Yep.
I had two of those full of empty cans. They were all drank.
I
These
had some that were undrank and unopened,
ooh
but I threw
yeah.
those all
You
out
could have
as
drank them.
I
Oh, we've talked
we
about that
talked about
before.
that on the
Yeah.
Dark Forces lore play commentary.
You could have cracked it open for the anniversary.
Yeah, give myself
Um,
some fucking disease.
well, there's a video of oh, I can't remember his name. He was a YouTuber, but he bought and opened and drank a Crystal Pepsi, an original Crystal
Oh
Pepsi.
yeah, yeah.
And this was like 15 years or 20 years after Crystal Pepsi was out, which
Right.
I remember liking Crystal Pepsi when it was out, but
Yeah, I didn't mind it. It was okay.
it only took him I think 5 or 10 minutes, and he just puked everywhere.
Oh,
I
jeez.
definitely don't want to drink 20-year-old soda.
No,
So he
no,
probably
no.
dodged a bullet actually by
Yeah,
getting rid of those.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I distinctly remember throwing out those cans, and it's interesting what um, I think as far as collecting goes, it's interesting what you collect when you're in the middle of like a hype frenzy for something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Where and Star Wars is so I mean it's part of their marketing and stuff is to create that frenzy and that I guess
Yeah.
FOMO, you know, the
Yeah,
FOMO of like
it worked on me multiple times because even for The Force Awakens, they had the big premiere of the toys in October or whatever. And
yeah.
we go to Target and we're like, oh my God, like we got to check this stuff out. And it's like, I think for The Force Awakens, it almost was like the Phantom Menace era. It was very similar to, but it was even worse because
Oh, there's Star Wars
Disney,
makeup, Star Wars oranges in the
Star Wars tissue
supermarkets.
paper. The one I always go back to is the oranges because it was just a bag of oranges with Star Wars on the label.
Yeah,
They are not
yep.
Star Wars oranges.
Yeah, there wasn't a stamp
So
on them. It wasn't like they were, pressed. Like they didn't grow into like some container that made it look like the Death Star or Star Killer base or
exactly.
anything.
Now, does
It was
Steve
just.
Sansweet at Rancho Obi-Wan, does he have the Star Wars oranges? That might be my first question to him if I ever
No,
visit.
yeah, you go to Rancho Obi-Wan and he's got like a fruit basket, hanging from the
Yeah,
ceiling, one of those
yeah,
metal ones
yeah.
that and it's got the oranges, but they're all like rotting, because at this point they'd all be just shriveled and like
Right.
moldy and
Because
stuff.
right, exactly. Because there's a lot of really good Rancho Obi-Wan videos on YouTube of people taking tours and Steve Sansweet providing commentary and this and that. And actually you can pay, there's a subscription thing because they're a nonprofit, and but if
Hmm.
you subscribe to their website, you get this all access thing where you can take virtual tours with all kinds of extras and stuff. But I do wonder what he has or doesn't have. Obviously, he doesn't have absolutely everything because it's ever
Right.
growing. He has a staff of people who like make sure to inventory everything and clean everything, and there's all that stuff. But um I know he has talked about food items and shampoos and things like that that have to be
Shampoos.
stored. No, yeah, because like even back in the 70s, there's like Luke, Leia, and I think Darth Vader shampoo bottles that were
Mhm.
shaped like the characters.
Yeah.
And he, in some cases, I know he opens these and then empties them like when he gets them.
Hmm.
But there's other items and stuff where he's preserved in refrigerated areas, and it just depends on what it is.
I just imagine, I'm imagining him going into this huge walk-in,
Freezer.
refrigerator. And
It's old
he's like,
cereal
he's like, oh,
boxes and
I've been saving these ice cream sandwiches for 30 years for a special occasion. Darth Vader ice cream
right,
sandwiches.
right.
He
Actually,
just gets sick and throws up everywhere. Oh.
exactly. Actually, this is a good moment to mention Steve Sansweet. I mean, what would a collectible show about Star Wars be without Steve Sansweet,
I
who
I touched
literally
him.
is?
I touched
You
him.
touched him at Celebration. That's
Yeah,
right.
I took a picture and man, I, you know, I don't. That's the only picture I have with anybody like, with my, people go to conventions and stuff and they pay like, some money to. It's a big thing now to like get your picture
Yeah,
taken with, you know, big stars. Not even like quote unquote D-list actors that are on the convention circuit, but
yeah,
you go to like Comic Con and other conventions for certain things, sci-fi conventions, and you'll get, A-list actors.
yeah,
Um, you'll be able to get a photo with them. My only photo with any relatively famous person is Steve Sansweet. That's it.
yeah, yeah. And I regret that I wasn't there because I had gone off and done some event, and you went to an event with him
Yeah,
in it or nearby, and
it was
I
in. I think it
regret.
was in the. It was in the. Well, there was only one tent really at Celebration One, but
There
it was
was two.
something.
There was
Was
two
there?
because yeah, if one event was going on here, the other one had this over
Did
here.
we ever go to the other
But
tent?
one tent had all the good stuff.
Yeah, that was
So
the big tent.
that was the big one that had Anthony Daniels in it. But there was at least one side tent that had
Okay,
lesser. It was more like niche, kind of things that
right.
people were doing.
Well, that was on the collecting side too, right? Because I think on the other side of the big tent was where the like vendors were for
Yes.
collectible stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in the
Yeah.
big tent, and like it was after whatever presentation they did, and Steve was, mingling with people after the thing, and I was like super excited to say hello and take a picture with him and stuff. He's super
Yeah.
nice. He's great.
Yeah. He's always been really cool in interviews, and of course, I became familiar with him from his mini QVC specials, one of which
Mm-hmm.
we have on our channel here at Star
Yeah,
Wars Unfiltered, and with more to come. I keep saying.
that's
Uh,
riveting.
There is, but they are really fun to still watch. They are a time capsule because actually, I mean, I became familiar with him because he had articles in Star Wars Insider and Star Wars Galaxy Magazine, and they were always the collecting articles because that was when Star Wars collecting was exploding after the
Mm-hmm.
Thrawn trilogy and the early 90s and the prequels around the corner and the special editions. All the Gen Xers were suddenly inventorying their basements and their garages and finding all this shit. And
Well, that
so,
that that is a that's a that kind of is the same vein of like the hype frenzy and stuff, but just QVC in general.
yes.
I mean, they just sold all sorts of quote unquote collectible shit that you just
Oh, yeah. It was
is
expensive
worthless.
stuff. Well, and that was the thing I was going to say. When I started noticing the QVC specials, I mean, they had been doing them since 92. I think the first one with Mark Hamill aired in 92 as part of a 15th anniversary for Star Wars. And that is on YouTube from another guy. And I remember seeing screens of that, I think printed in Star Wars Insider.
Mm-hmm.
But they would sometimes talk about these, and I kept missing them because when I was living at that house, I didn't have cable in my room, so it was only in the living room, and it wasn't as convenient to be out there taping stuff all the time. So when I finally saw a Star Wars QVC special, it was spring '96, and I taped them, all of them after that up until I think '99. So I got like, I want to say probably a good solid 10 on tape,
Man,
and I
doing the
remember.
Lord's work.
Yeah, that's right. And that first one, and sometimes Steve was usually the guest because they could always call him up, and he was very informative. He knew what he was talking about. He knew his stuff. But also in '96, he became the relations with the fan relations guy for Lucasfilm. So
Mm-hmm.
because he left his job at the Wall Street Journal, his day job, and then became connected to Lucasfilm, and so and that was when Shadows of the Empire was coming out. So those figures and those all the trading cards and the novel and things related to that, and but then sometimes they would have, different hosts on. I always remember there was like Steve Bryant was a host and he was
Mm-hmm.
always clueless. I remember one episode he actually said Star Trek at one point and no one corrected him. And I was like, good Lord. But if it was Lisa Robertson, she was a hottie and she loved Star Wars and she actually knew her shit. And I always loved it when she co-hosted with Steve Sansweet. So anyway, those were always fun. That's part of my warm and fuzzy 90s Star Wars memories is those QVC specials because also this pre-special editions there wasn't much Star Wars content on television like at all unless you caught the trilogy on
Right.
USA or Sci-Fi Channel.
Yeah.
There wasn't like making of specials. There was just nothing. It was the media was kind of dead on that front for a while. And so when you're flipping through channels and you see QVC and you're like, "Oh shit, I gotta tape this. They're talking about fucking Star Wars." And it was exciting and I mean like that's what fired me up. That's what got me into buying the Kenner figures again, the old and the new. I started in like early 96. So,
Well, that's back then you would tape stuff because something would be on and we may never see it again.
yeah,
Doesn't get
that's
aired again. There
yeah,
wasn't
now
this.
there's YouTube.
Now there's YouTube. Companies and people and stuff will put stuff up, immediately and up onto YouTube. If it airs somewhere else, it'll be up on YouTube too.
Mhm.
Either officially through whatever company or whatever, or somebody will just throw it up there themselves, like a lot of people have done with the old stuff that they taped from the 80s, 70s,
Yep.
80s, and 90s. Not just Star Wars, but just anything.
Yeah, and
It's
thank God. I mean,
oh
you
yeah,
get to watch old Siskel and Ebert reviews from the 80s of Return to Jedi
commercials,
and old commercials.
commercials.
I love seeing the special edition commercials that I had taped a couple in the 90s, but there was a lot that I got to see again on YouTube and I'm like, "Oh, I totally remember this one." And
That's another thing that people collect, right? Like people will collect. We joke about NFTs, or we're skeptical of any NFTs, but people will collect digital stuff as far as old television commercials or
oh man, I'm a harvester
specials, right? But
because I got like videos and music on like 3 terabyte drives
for Star Wars too,
basically.
like different trailers, you know, um,
Yeah,
even even at this point, different editions of the movies, because
exactly.
not only officially has the movie has especially New Hope, but the other original trilogy, or even the sequel or the prequel movies have
Yeah, they
changed.
had different edits. The theatrical version of the Phantom Menace has never been released on anything but VHS
Yeah,
at this
which
point.
I have that somewhere
Thank
in a
goodness I
box.
do too.
Yeah, that nice magnetic media that's probably disintegrating as we speak in the garage.
Exactly.
But and I remember collecting when Napster first came out, and
Yep.
then later WinMX and Kazaa and all that,
LimeWire.
collecting any sort of like Star Wars audio thing, whether it be like
Oh,
par-
remember when we like found the audio of Star Tours? How
stuff like that.
exciting that was.
The Star Tours audio, different parody songs,
Yep.
like
The
the
Star Wars Cantina,
Star Wars Cantina,
Richard Cheese, or whatever it
different
was.
different different, just audio from trailers, even,
Yeah.
um, just all that stuff. Now it's actually it's funny. Now that stuff would actually potentially be hard to find because there isn't
It
a
actually is relatively.
Napster or a WinMX. I know that there's file sharing platforms that aren't BitTorrent that you can do like kind of granular searches for stuff,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
some of that audio stuff you can't. It would be very difficult to find.
It's tough,
I,
especially if it was unofficial audio like bootleg kind of material or things like
mm-hmm.
that.
Star Wars
It's
breakbeats, you know.
Yeah, Star Wars break beats. I think one of the first times I heard the Star Wars gangster rap was the MP3 and not just the video on YouTube or whatever,
Yeah,
or shared
yeah,
on Kazaa,
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, that's the digital stuff is kind of a thing that people
Yeah,
collect too, and I collected it to an extent, 20 years ago, but
I'm
haven't
all
tried to keep
about
up with
that
that stuff.
on one of my terabyte drives. It's pretty much dedicated to all Star Wars media. So it's like scans and video files mostly. And yeah, it's a lot of like things in a lot of cases that I grabbed from YouTube and used a converter to save the file just to have it because people do take things down on YouTube. That's the
Mm-hmm.
problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it's something really rare, I'll grab it for my own and I'll just have it in my thing, whether it's an old making of special that isn't on Blu-ray or digital and it's kind of rare, just random things. I mean that's why I collected the QVC specials and loved recording those and having just rare content that not everyone has, and I like providing that too. That's why there's going to be more of that on the channel as time goes on. Once I get back in the groove of converting VHS, which takes a while. That's the reason I haven't done more
Well,
of
it
it.
takes a while.
It's
You gotta have that set up. You gotta
Yeah,
your
it's a time-consuming thing
player
to
and everything.
run the wire from the VCR to your computer and all that. Plus, you got to
What do
sit
you
there and record it. So.
collect now as far as Star Wars?
My I think as time went on over the years, you mentioned you focused on the books and audio dramas. Like for me, it was like I need to stop all the other stuff, all the action figures and coins and things like that, and just focus on the lore. So it was like these days it's paperback novels, the RPG books,
Mm-hmm.
the video games when I can within reason. If it's a digital game, like through GOG, that's much better. It could just sit on my laptop then. I'm not going back and buying box copies of like every LucasArts game.
Well,
That would be nice if I
that's
had the
part of the
room.
yeah. That's the major problem of collecting anything is space.
It really is, and that's the detriment is that there was a period in 2011 where I had sold a lot of my RPG books, not all of them, but like 10 or 12. I had
Mm-hmm.
started the process of selling all of them, and I began that, and I sold some comic trade paperbacks, and I made a decent amount of money, but then I think eBay canceled my account because one or two people said they didn't get their stuff, which was total BS, but this was like years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had my issues with eBay in the past, going back, 20 odd years or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm probably on some wanted sign in the eBay offices or something after all the bootleg
The
concert VHS I sold back
yeah, the
in
tapes.
2000. But yeah, so they pulled my account and it was kind of a blessing in disguise because those things I had sold in 2011, I ended up repurchasing. So some Weston Games books and things like that. So yeah, it's just these days it's the lore. And what happened is I had a massive collection of the 90s Kenner figures in the packages.
Yep.
And you remember that from my old bedroom
Yeah.
back in Morro
You
Bay.
had them lining
And
the
I
wall all the way around the room.
lining the wall, all pinned up with thumbtacks to hold them up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I had nearly every one from 95 to 98 with about 10 or 12 Phantom Menace figures. I think I was probably missing five or six figures from like 98. Like I never did get the EU figures they came out with that year, like Thrawn, Mara Jade, and Kyle Katarn. But most everything in that late 90s Kenner period I had. And then when I was going through my purging of physicals media and physical everything in the 2011 2010 around there, I went to the swap meet and I got, a spot there, and I was selling a lot of this stuff, and the figures in the packages were selling like gangbusters. I could not stop people, and I
Mm-hmm.
was selling them uh probably under what they were worth. I was selling them for, if it was a common background character, it was just like $5. So
Mm-hmm.
I was probably paying, it was probably this less than what maybe they were worth, but I was still making a profit for what I paid back in the late 90s, which is like
Right.
2.99 or
Right.
whatever. And then there was some I would sell for more. If it was Boba Fett, I'd sell them for 10 or 15. And then there was vehicles. I had like a speeder bike and a Naboo fighter, all this stuff. And I think I made a good few $100 purging that Kenner collection. And the kids, they were ripping right into them right away. And then I remember people asking me like, "Does this bother you? You've had these figures for 10 or 15 years and you're seeing kids rip right into them." And I'm like, "Nah, dude, I don't care." Like, they're stoked. Like, they're happy it's a new toy. It's Star Wars. They're like, I was seeing the next generation like get excited. So it
Yeah.
fired me up, and I was like, "No, this is cool." And I'm making money. So who gives a shit?
Right.
And so that was cool. And then I did hold on to, I still have about 15 of the figures. The first 15 I collected in 96. I held on to all those because those are the most like emotionally resonant ones.
Mm-hmm.
And I still have my old Boba Fett, which isn't even mine. It's my friend Travis's that I've been holding for. I borrowed at his house. I've mentioned before in the podcast, I'm sure, and lore play commentaries. He and his brother had a massive collection of all the 80s and 70s Kenner figures and vehicles that we'd play with in his backyard. And I borrowed Boba Fett one day. "Hey, can I borrow this?" "Yeah, sure." And meanwhile, it's been like 33 years or something. And Travis moved up north, and I haven't seen him since the 90s. So it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
hard to, there's no motivation really. I've even said, like, "Travis, I still have your figure." And he doesn't really log in a lot on social media and everything. So it's whatever to him at this point. But, and I think you could buy a loose Boba Fett for like $10. It's not a lot, to get one out of the package.
I'm not
So
surprised that he doesn't care.
yeah, it's whatever. But it is funny that I have held on to this figure for so many years. And yeah, actually, that's a whole other tangent in itself. The old Kenner figures in the 80s. But I mean, we talked about that a little bit. But I just remember there's giant battles in that backyard at his house, and it was one of those things where it's just like a kid's dream. You got like a whole series of a toy line, and you got this big yard with trees and little hills and steps and everything, and you just had these
Mm-hmm.
like epic wars.
Well,
Um,
that's the original intent of the action figures, not to just sit there in boxes and
yeah,
you know
yeah,
do
and he
nothing for
had
years.
he had like the shuttle Tidarium, he had TIE Interceptor, TIE Fighter, Y-Wing, X-Wing. He had squadrons of stormtroopers, so we could have like 10 or 12 of them. It was
Yeah,
everything.
that I was
Yeah,
gonna mention that it's weird when you're as a kid you would want you know more than one stormtrooper, right? Like
right.
to recreate like what's going on and stuff in the movies, and any sort of henchman or something for any toy line or whatever,
Or
like
Foot
the
Soldier for
foot.
TMNT.
Yeah, exactly. You would want more than one, but you never do it because it's like, well, if I
It's
can get
more
one
money.
figure, yeah, if I can get one figure, I want to get Darth Vader. I don't want to get Stormtrooper number 3. You know,
Exactly. exactly.
Um, so that seems really decadent to me. Like that's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
flaunting
yeah.
flaunting your wealth is having more than one stormtrooper.
That's so true. And by this time, this was like still this was kind of in some ways my first wave of Star Wars because I was about 8 or 9 by this time, so I was old enough to really appreciate the story of Star Wars at this point. And I just remember thinking like, wow, this is so lucky that Travis and Kyle have these figures. But at the same time, I think by that point during the dark times, a lot of them they might have just picked up either really cheap in bargain bins or used, or because I remember in the late 80s as I got more toys, a lot of my Star Wars stuff I did get used from thrift stores.
Yeah.
I had Hammerhead and I had Jabba's droid torture chamber kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like a crane sort of.
Right.
Uh, I got that at a thrift store, and I had like the Millennium Falcon. I didn't get some of my things new; they were just used later from yard sales or whatever. And because yeah, my family, we did a lot of yard sales, a lot of thrift stores, and yeah, a lot of secondhand toys. Which, because yeah, Star Wars toys were gone from stores, I think by 87 at the latest. So it was the dark times. But anyway, we kind of worked our way backward on that, huh? We went from 80s to 90s, 2000s, and back to the 80s
Hey, I,
again.
I just asked you what you're collecting now, and then you're talking about toys from the '80s and stuff.
Right. Well, I meant to cover those things chronologically anyway, so I
Uh
kind of
huh.
had to work my way back.
Uh
But
huh.
yeah,
Well, personally, at this point, about the only thing I collect, as far as like I got to get every one of these things, is the new Happy
Star
Meal
Wars
toys.
oranges. Oh yeah,
I would,
yeah, yeah,
I wish I should have got a sack of oranges and just cut the bottom out, let the oranges out, and keep the
yeah.
netting and the little piece of
Exactly.
Star Wars tape on the top of it.
Right. No,
Um,
yeah, the Happy Meal toys, because that was fun. That was like Rise of Skywalker, and it was actually really fun
it was
because
fun, but they're really shitty toys.
they're not great. But then again, the whole fun of it is that you're just doing it to do it. Like
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. I mean, they had what I think like 12 things. I don't even know what you
yeah,
call them. They're figures or whatever, but
they're
they're just
almost like Fisher Price, like
they're like backpack
people.
hangers.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
like
they're just like
backpack hangers.
solid
They're just not very
kind of things.
good. That's all. They're
No,
just
they're
not very
not
good.
great.
And then they
Not
had
great.
the whatever the Sith set. It was like Palpatine,
Yeah,
Vader, and an
Kylo
alternate
Ren.
Vader. And no, I don't think Kylo was in that set. It was
Oh, okay.
Palpatine, Vader, I think it was a um, Emperor Guardsman or whatever,
Yeah, yeah,
Imperial Guard,
right.
something like that. I don't know.
Sith Trooper,
That was oh yeah, that's what it was. I think it's Sith Trooper
the
maybe.
red Stormtrooper.
I
Yeah.
don't know. Whatever. They're shitty toys. So I got all those. That was for the Rise of Skywalker toys, and then recently they had that weird sort of set of the big heads with the vehicles. Like there was it
Yes,
was a
yes. I got a few. I got a handful. Not like a
yeah
lot, but
I got almost all of them. I think I'm missing like one or two. I got close to the end, and I was because I didn't like go out of my way to go to all the McDonald's
yeah, we just
in
have
the
ours around
greater
the
Orange
corner here.
County area. But
Right.
if there was a McDonald's nearby, just stop by and say, "Hey, what toys you got? Okay, can I buy this toy or whatever?"
Yeah.
Um, but after collecting all the Rise of Skywalker toys, I wasn't gonna try to get all those toys because that was a lot of
Yeah.
Happy Meals
No, that is a
getting
lot
all
of
those
Happy Meals.
things.
Like it's tough. Like unless you, at least in your case, you got a kid, so it's a little easier to be like, hey, here's a Happy Meal. But like
Mm-hmm.
as an adult, I have no excuse. So here I am eating a bunch of cheeseburgers at 41 years old.
Well, and it's
It's
lame
like,
because some McDonald's won't sell you the toys without buying a Happy Meal. Some do,
right.
some don't, depending on the manager and if they're franchises or not or whatever. So
Yeah, and there's weird things too. I remember it was only the Star Wars vehicle heads were only out for 2 or 3 weeks, and I remember
yes,
going in. I remember going in and going, "Oh, I'd like to get a Star Wars Happy Meal." And like, "Oh, we don't. We're out of those now." And I'm like, "What? It's only been a few weeks." And then what's weird is I went the next day, And I just randomly asked, like, "Oh, what's the new toy or something?" And she's like, "Oh, we got Star Wars toys." And I'm like, "What? The guy yesterday said you guys were out." I don't
Depends
know
on who
what he's
you
talking
get,
about.
man. It
It,
depends on
it
who you
really
get. Some
does.
people don't
It,
give a shit. Some people want to be obtuse just to be obtuse.
dude, the guy I got one time, it was right around that period, the same week or whatever. As soon as I mentioned that I was like that I wanted a Star Wars toy, he went on a whole tangent where he was like saying how he was collecting them and that he loved, this movie or that movie, and he's asking me like how long you've been, and it was like this whole conversation just sparked from me asking, do you have like a Luke Skywalker X-wing back there or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And I actually, that's the fun of collecting too. I think that's the one thing I wanted to hammer home with this topic, is that it's the stories, it's the people you meet, it's the connections you make, it's the random sparks between fans that fly when you buy these things, or you find them at flea markets or swap meets, or whatever. I mean, that's like the whole journey of the whole fun of Star Wars is that connection with people. So
Well, yeah. I mean, the for especially with Happy Meal toys or Kid Meal toys or whatever, it's kind of the adventure of searching for all of them, going to different
yeah.
places. I mean, if you're really hell bent on getting all of them, so
Yeah, absolutely. And then like that takes me back also to the whole thing I mentioned about connections and family, because my dad was always a big part of this. So like back in the 90s, my dad got fired up about it because I was. So then even on my dad's work breaks, he's going into Toys R Us by himself and flipping through each line of figures looking for Lando because it was the rare one at the time,
right, right.
or Princess Leia. And then that was just kind of funny that he was all into it just like I was.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just like hunting records in a record store, it's like it's something you can do with somebody. And yeah, it's the hunt, it's the journey to get them all, just like Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think I have any more collecting stories today,
Huh.
but there will be more in the future,
Yeah.
because wow, we've gone quite a while in this episode. Um, was there any more collecting stories you want to mention?
Well, I got about 13 more stories. Not really. No. None I think of right now.
Yeah, no, well, that's the good thing. We'll collect some more for another collecting episode, because
Oh, there you go.
like I said, I want to do more of these. We get so caught up in the Star Wars book and TV news and Disney Plus, and obviously we could do our little side tangents here and there, but we should more often because it is fun. And yeah, it's just it's these old memories of Star Wars that I love going over. Um, but anyway, until the next episode, remember to check out our YouTube channel at Star Wars Unfiltered. Remember to check us out on, of course, Instagram, and we have our Facebook page as well. And if anyone wants to email us with any questions or comments, we are at starwarsunfiltered@yahoo.com. And I think that about wraps it up for this episode. So until next time, may the Force be with you.
Good night.
Now, what do you call two sons fighting each other?
I don't know.
Star Wars.